Vincenzo's Gold Crypto Investing in this quick Vincenzo's Gold Crypto Investing, and we're going to start off here with this brief clip from Peter Schiff, somebody that I've learned lots and lots over the last 10, 15 years.
Because somebody asked Powell if, in his observation, consumers were in any way changing their overall habits in response to what the Fed has done or what's happening in the economy. Was he seeing any signs that consumers were tightening their belts and spending less? Now, an honest answer would have been, yes, of course. There's lots of signs, because there are. There's signs everywhere that consumers are tightening their belts. First of all, look at all the stuff that is collapsing, starting with all the macroeconomic data that is abysmal. And I'm going to get into some of that in a little bit. And consumer confidence, which has collapsed to an all-time record low, savings that have collapsed to near record lows, GDP forecasts that keep ratcheting lower, and personal wealth that is evaporating. Look what's happening.
And that's why old Vincenzo thinks we're entering in an inflationary depression, right? It's going to be worse than a recession. It's the worst of both worlds, a recession, depressed growth, and inflationary consumer prices, right? And I've been linking this all for you with the dollar, the Fed monetary and fiscal policy that drive this nation. And that's why I harp and preach. You got to watch what the Fed does. If they're printing money and lowering rates, you get bubbles and you get excess spending and misallocation of capital, right? But as they tighten and they raise rates, you get the exact opposite. And we're heading into an insolvency crisis more than likely.
To the stock market. On my last podcast, I pointed out that we are now in a bear market in the S&P. We had a collapse in cryptocurrencies. Again, I'll get to more of that in a minute, but a lot of wealth has evaporated. And maybe the Fed doesn't remember the goal of quantitative easing was to create economic growth through a wealth effect. The idea was if the Fed could make asset prices go up, well, people would be wealthier and they would spend more. Well, it must work in reverse. If asset prices are collapsing and people are less.
And that's exactly what's happening. Asset prices, as we get rid of that, are collapsing, and especially the risk assets. I've been linking that into the housing market, how that was going to start to roll over on itself, and it is, right? And this is all very important, linking the financials, the monetary and fiscal policy of this nation and other nations to try to get ahead of the game and sidestep and audible the criminal gangsters that are manipulating these markets, the crypto, the gold and silver bullion market, right? They're manipulating all of them. And as we look at the Bitcoin price, the dollar came up to that 105 upper resistance, and you can see the Bitcoin price broke down, right? It breached that 19,893, and we're sitting right around the top part of that white support zone now after we nibbled our way in with our sneaky little head, right? And you can see we're trying to recover now. And if you can recover and get above that 19,200-ish, you can make a run back at now major upper resistance at 19,893, right? You see we're sitting right about here right now. If you can get above this white support zone, you can try to make a run back up into here. But there's a lot of sell pressure up there now, right? And the worst case scenario, you come down to this green ring, and then you would flush all the way down to the bottom part of this white support zone, which would get you very close to liquidation crises and the lending platforms that are already getting hammered, and they're already having major issues, and they're a few one bad shoe to drop away from going insolvent, and like Three Arrows Capital, and a bunch of other lending sites that are already, Three Arrows Capital to me is already insolvent. You've already seen a couple coins go bankrupt. Michael Saylor just bought, as we move on from the Bitcoin price, Michael Saylor just bought 500, almost 500 Bitcoin yesterday as a Bitcoin whale, and he brought his average cost down from about 42,000 to 30,000, 31,000, and it brings his margin calls down to about 3,000. Well, he's already getting hammered 6-7% on that purchase, and it's all on borrowed money from his company, right? So it's very risky. I wouldn't recommend anybody do that in their own. Michael Saylor told people last year when Bitcoin was at 50,000 to borrow as much money you can and to go into as much debt as you can to buy Bitcoin at $50,000, right? The worst financial advice, and should be almost criminal for giving that kind of advice to the people that follow him, because those people right now are losing everything, right? They're getting those margins called, they're getting those loans called if they took his advice last summer, and they're in the shithouse, right? And more than likely facing personal bankruptcy because they don't have a company to borrow all this money against. In worst case scenario, he loses his company, but his personal wealth is fine, right? And he was, yeah, it's the worst financial advice and should almost be criminal what he was telling people to do last year, because a lot of people listen to him and follow what he says, right? And that was horrible, horrible advice coming from a guy in the late 90s, early 2000s with micro strategies. Uh, he got caught lying about his profit in his company, turning a like $2 trillion deficit into a profit to jack up his share price. And when he got exposed, he had to pay a huge fine, and his stock price literally lost 75% in the next few trading days, right? And that's why micro strategies collapsed. The guy's a con man, he's a charlatan, and he's a snake oil salesman, and he's using uh, greed and fear of missing out to fleece, heist, and shice people. Just look at his track record. He's a snake oil salesman. He's a fraud and a liar. Just look what he did with his own company 20 years ago, but everyone forgets about that. And uh, and they just go, and many of people got fleece, heisted, and shysted by that snake oil salesman. And again, they just repackage them, rebrand them, and throw them back out in your face, right? You guys got to be smarter than that in this kind of a market and this times that we're living in now, right? You got to understand what's going on. And you can see Cardano got rejected again by that 200-day moving average, but it's trying to hold support down here. If we take our industry exclusive perching tool, you can see support, 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 support. We're snaking down there. Not really any uptick in volume like we had there, 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 there. A little bit above the mean. You can see that yellow line's the mean and the volume, right? So if we can't hold this critical area that we're at, unfortunately, we're coming down to the top part of the shithouse. But if we can gather some support, the dollar relaxes a little bit today, we could get a little localized pump, right? And maybe come back up into these moving averages, and that would be your upper resistance that you would get shot down in the back of the head execution style, right? So that's what we're looking at there in Cardano. Uh, you can see we got a nice little head and shoulders topping reversal pattern on here, right? Why does it do that? It says it's there, but then it doesn't do it. You can see we got a little shoulder, a head, maybe a little shoulder, and our technical move would be down into this range, the supply zone, local supply zone, towards the bottom part of the last line of defense, aka get my shit together to the shit house, right? So this could be a pretty big fall. If the buyers can come in, you can make another run at the 6.5 cents, right? Dogecoin millionaire, you should be using this rally to parcel out, sell, so you can buy cheap if you really believe in this coin, right? Shout out to Bitcoin or Dogecoin millionaire. Or he's not a Dogecoin millionaire anymore. He's a Dogecoin thousandaire on his way to being a Dogecoin negativaire, right? If he doesn't get out of his position on these opportunities as the market gets these intermittent pumps, but always sells back off. You can see XLM got harshly rejected up there, and now we're trading back down. And if we can't hold this right here, this support, and on these local support areas, you're going to fall all the way down to this underneath target in the blue ring that we've been watching for quite some time, right? Like, subscribe, and share to Vincenzo's Go Crypto Investing. We'll give you more updates here as the day goes on. I got a little bit of a late start, a little hungover from bowling, had to take care of some business at work, had to print out some paychecks, blah, 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 right? We got a busy holiday weekend shutdown here, so I will not be shooting off any fireworks except being at this plant. Use my links down below. Just subscribe, hit that bell notification down there So that way you can get all of my updates and you don't miss any of my updated videos on this important, ever-changing market. Become member at Jabroni Killer to support the channel for as cheap as $2.99. It's the cheapest introductory into supporting a channel on YouTube, $2.99. That's right, old Vincenzo makes about 75 cents profit if you want to look at it that way. If you sign up for $2.99, it covers the cost of running the channel and all the nonsense. But you go find another station where he gives you access to members only videos to support the channel as cheap as $2.99. 1,400 people on my channel. I should have 1,400 people supporting the channel for as one simple monthly rate of $2.99. That's right. Let's look at how much that costs for a year. $2.99 times 12. It costs $35.88 a year. And you get members only videos, right? And they find a better deal on YouTube than that from a guy that's going to give you housing market updates, stock market updates, monetary and fiscal policy that dictate this nation and correlate it into Bitcoin, into cryptos to give you that 69.69 steps ahead and that leg up on the criminal gangsters that have infiltrated the Federal Reserve, the United States government, and world monetary uh, and banking systems around this world, right? That drive this nation and that drive the world economy, and that can correlate and link it up flawlessly and beautiful and execute what we see happening out ahead of the competition and sidestepping and audibling the criminal gangsters and the profitability and fleece heisting and shysting, the fleece heisters and shysters and overting and subverting the subverters and overters and calling out and pointing out and bringing to the limelight the snake oil salesmen, the charlatans, right? That are out there that are out here to fleece you, right? For as cheap as $35.88 a year, not a month, a year, not a week, not a day, but a year. Some of these stations, like Grant Cardano, are charging $7,000 to listen to his malarkey to take his classes to get rich, right? That's not what Vincenzo does. He's fleecing his customers out of $7,000. Let's go look at some of these other channels and exactly what they charge, right? And I don't mean to call this guy out, DIY investing, but I mean, he has been horrible calling this pattern, right? I don't even, and I mean, I don't mean to call this
Hello,
guy out, but we're going to go take a look at what this charlatan charges. Did he take all this crap out of here? He might, no, it's in his comment section probably. He might have took all this garbage out of here.
hello, everybody.
Come on, there's no way. We got to hit more. Look at this. Let's just hit VIPs. This guy's track record is horrible. He has no idea what's going on in the market. And look at what he charges. I'm charging 35 as cheap as $35.88 a year. And this guy's trying to charge $999. 1900. I can't, if anyone's ever bought this, shame on you. This is the face of the charlatan that he thinks he can charge $1,900. I mean, are you kidding me? And then it's cheap one, $197 for nonsense, right? That's the kind of charlatans that are out there. And look at his predictions. They're horrible. He has no idea what's going on in this market. And my man, I don't mean to call your station out. You're putting out content, you're trying to educate people. You're just not understanding this market. But when I see somebody charging $1,900 for his VIP course, that is absurd, appalling, and grossly and should be criminal. That should be criminal on YouTube to charge this. And I hope nobody is paid that because this guy has no idea what he's talking about. He didn't see this bear market coming and still thinks he's in a bull market after you're down 70% and you got liquidity crises going across exchanges. And he wants to charge $1,900. Once again, keep up your content in your YouTube trying to educate people DIY investing. I don't mean to call you out like this, but when you're going to go ahead and charge $1,900 for whatever that nonsense is, shame on you. You should be appalled. You should be embarrassed and you should be ashamed of yourself. And I got to call people out like that are going to charge that. And he's just one of many that charge these absurd prices. It's absurd, right? It's just absurd. And all my members should be supporting me for $2.99. And you get all this great content. He has no idea. And none of these charlatans that charge that kind of money understand the monetary and fiscal policy like old Vincenzo does. And they don't understand how to correlate it in with the financials to what's going to happen with crypto. But $1,900 is just appalling. It should be criminal. And it's just I just can't keep my mouth shut about it. That's absurd, right? Once again, like, subscribe, and share. DYI Investing. It's nothing personal against you. I'm sure your channel has grown. I see you have a lot of subscribers, but to charge that, that's just appalling. And you should be ashamed of yourself. And you need to really do something about that, because that is what a charlatan and a snake oil salesman does, right? Peace and love. Peace and love.